The massive alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit on a quiet Tuesday morning. Its sleek, metallic surface reflected sunlight like a second moon, catching the attention of millions below. The arrival marked humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council, though not in the way anyone had hoped. Inside the United Nations Emergency Session in New York, Ambassador James Gray stood at the podium, his weathered face illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights. He held up the tablet displaying the Council's first message to Earth. The room fell silent as he read their words. Greetings, primitive species of Sol 3. We have observed your development and find it necessary to establish protective oversight of your world. The Council representatives had arrived without warning, their ships moving faster than any human technology could track. They came not as equals, but as self-appointed guardians of what they saw as a backward world. 2 days later, aboard the Council's diplomatic vessel, Ambassador Gray and a small team of human representatives faced their first meeting with alien life. The Council chamber gleamed with advanced technology. Holographic displays floated in the air, and anti-gravity platforms kept the alien representatives suspended above the human delegation. The chief speaker, a tall being with metallic skin, looked down at the humans with glowing eyes. Your species still relies on biological functions for thinking. How quaint. Other council members chittered with what seemed like laughter. Gray maintained his composure, though his hands tightened behind his back. We find our biological nature to be one of our greatest strengths, he replied. Strength? Another council member scoffed. The being's voice translated through their advanced systems with a tone of pure contempt. Your fastest ships barely reach your own moon. Your bodies are fragile. Your lifespans are insignificant. What strength could you possibly offer the galaxy? The council members displayed holographic images of Earth's cities, technology, and military capabilities. Each image was met with more mockery. They laughed at human vehicles still using wheels. They mocked Earth's primitive space stations. They found humanity's reliance on sleep and food to be particularly amusing. Look at their weapons, one council member noted, displaying an image of Earth's most advanced fighter jet. They still use combustion engines and solid projectiles, like children playing with toys. Gray watched as they dissected every aspect of human civilization. He noticed how they particularly enjoyed pointing out humanity's biological limitations, the need for rest, the susceptibility to disease, the relatively short lifespan. Yet something in their mockery felt hollow, as if they were trying too hard to prove their superiority. The meeting concluded with the Council's official decree. Earth would become a protectorate, a primitive world under their guidance. They would provide limited technological assistance while ensuring humans didn't harm themselves with unchecked development. As Gray and his team prepared to return to Earth, the chief speaker offered one final observation. Your species is lucky we found you before you destroyed yourselves. Your reliance on biological systems makes you unstable, emotional. You need our guidance. Back on Earth, Gray sat in the Oval Office with military and scientific leaders. General Stone, a practical woman with decades of experience, studied the Council's generous offer of protection. They think they know everything about us, Stone said, her voice steady and determined. They see only what they want to see. What they don't understand, added Dr. Wells, the head of Earth's top research facility, is that our biology, our adaptability, might be exactly what gives us an edge they can't imagine. The room fell quiet as they considered their options. The aliens' mockery had stung, but it had also revealed something crucial, their overwhelming arrogance. They were so convinced of their technological superiority that they had dismissed humanity's potential entirely. As the sun set outside the White House windows, the leaders of humanity made their decision. They would accept the Council's protectorate status for now. But in secret, they would prepare. The aliens had made a critical mistake in their judgment of Earth, and someday they would learn just how wrong they were. Project Phoenix was about to begin, and with it, humanity's true rise to power in the galaxy. 3 months after the Council's arrival, Earth had grown quiet. Too quiet, the aliens thought. They expected protests, rebellion, or at least some form of resistance to their new role as humanity's protectors. Instead, they watched as humans seemingly accepted their place with surprising calm. They couldn't have been more wrong. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility unknown even to most world governments, General Stone stood before a massive digital display. The screen showed hundreds of small dots moving across Earth's surface, Council observation satellites. "They think we're being obedient," she said to the room full of military leaders from every major nation. "Let them keep thinking that." Project Phoenix had transformed the underground base into humanity's greatest secret. Scientists from rival nations worked side by side, their former differences forgotten in the face of alien mockery. Dr. Wells led a team studying a small piece of alien technology, a broken communication device left behind after the first meeting. "Their arrogance is their weakness," Dr. Wells explained, carefully taking apart the alien device. "They're so proud of their pure machine technology that they've stopped looking for new solutions. They've stopped evolving." The device revealed surprising truths. The Council's technology, while advanced, followed rigid patterns. They had abandoned biological components centuries ago, believing pure machine logic to be superior. This discovery sparked an idea that would change everything. Above ground, Earth played its part perfectly. Ambassador Gray attended council meetings, nodding politely as they explained simple concepts as if teaching children. Each patronizing session was recorded and studied by human scientists, who gathered more information about council technology through these educational meetings. "Your species is progressing acceptably," the chief speaker announced during one session, his metallic face showing what passed for pride among his kind. "Soon you may be advanced enough to understand basic space travel principles." Gray bowed respectfully, hiding his smile. On his wrist, a seemingly primitive watch recorded every detail of the Council's technology in action. "We are grateful for your guidance," he replied, using the humble tone they expected. Meanwhile, in laboratories across Earth, humanity's greatest minds had made breakthrough after breakthrough. They discovered that the Council's technology, while powerful, lacked adaptation. It couldn't evolve or learn like living things could. Dr. Wells stood in her lab, holding up a small chip that would change the course of human history. "We're not trying to copy their technology," she explained to General Stone. "We're making something better, something they can't imagine." The chip contained human neural patterns merged with machine learning. Unlike the Council's rigid systems, this hybrid technology could grow, adapt, and evolve. It was humanity's answer to their mockery, a perfect blend of biology and machine. In secret shipyards built inside hollowed-out mountains and beneath ocean floors, the first vessels of Project Phoenix took shape. They weren't the clumsy metal ships the Council expected. These were something new, ships that could think, heal, and grow stronger. "How long can we keep this hidden?" General Stone asked during a late-night meeting with Earth's leaders. "As long as we need to," Ambassador Gray replied. "Their sensors only look for what they expect to find. They're searching for primitive rockets and basic computers. They're not looking for what we're actually building." 1 year after first contact, Earth appeared to be the same humble, primitive world the Council had discovered. Their satellites showed humans going about their simple lives, using their simple technologies, being simple creatures. But underground, beneath the oceans, and hidden in plain sight, humanity was becoming something unprecedented. They were creating a force that would shake the galaxy to its core. The Council's mockery had not broken humanity's spirit. It had focused it into a razor-sharp blade. And soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn why you should never underestimate a species that had survived and thrived on one of the most challenging worlds in known space. Project Phoenix was almost ready to rise from the ashes of alien contempt. The warning came on a cold winter morning. Council ships appeared in Earth's orbit, more than usual, and they were damaged. Ambassador Gray watched from the UN building as emergency signals flashed across the sky. The chief speaker's hologram appeared before Earth's leaders, but this time without any trace of mockery. His metallic face showed what humans recognized as fear. "The swarm has broken through our outer defenses," he announced. "They have destroyed 12 council worlds in the past month alone." Images appeared in the air, showing scenes that made even hardened military leaders gasp. Entire planets covered in strange, shifting masses, council ships being torn apart by creatures that seemed to be made of living darkness. The swarm was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. "We expect them to reach your sector within 3 months," the chief speaker continued. "We will try to evacuate as many humans as we can to safer worlds, though space will be limited." General Stone watched the images with careful attention. While the council saw only destruction, she noticed patterns in the swarm's attacks. They weren't just destroying. They were adapting, learning, evolving with each battle. "How many ships have you lost?" she asked, keeping her voice neutral. 4,326, the chief speaker replied. "Our weapons barely damage them. They adapt to every strategy we use." In the secure facility beneath the mountains, Dr. Wells studied the council's battle footage. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the way the swarm moved. "They're not machines, and they're not simple animals. There's something in between." The council's purely mechanical approach was failing against an enemy that could evolve. Their rigid tactics and unchanging strategies meant they fought the same way every time, while the swarm grew stronger with each encounter. Ambassador Gray attended emergency council sessions, watching their growing desperation. Their mighty fleet, which had once seemed so impressive, was being swatted aside like toys. Their advanced technology proved useless against an enemy that could adapt to anything they tried. Perhaps, Gray suggested carefully during one session, Earth could offer some assistance. The council members laughed, though their laughter held an edge of hysteria. "What could you possibly offer?" one asked. "Your primitive weapons would be even more useless than ours." Earth's leaders met in secret, watching as the swarm drew closer. Project Phoenix was ready, but they had to time their revelation carefully. Too soon, and the council might try to seize their technology. Too late, and there might not be a galaxy left to save. "They still think we're helpless," General Stone said, standing in the command center of humanity's first true space fleet. Hidden in the dark spaces between planets, 300 ships waited. Not the clunky metal vessels the council expected, but something new. Ships that lived and learned. Dr. Wells monitored the fleet's neural networks as they processed information about the swarm. "Our ships are already developing countermeasures," she reported. "They're learning from the council's failures." The council's defeats continued. Their mighty technologies, unchanged for centuries, proved worthless against an enemy that treated each battle as a lesson. Their losses mounted as the swarm consumed world after world. 2 months after the warning, long-range sensors detected the first wave of the swarm entering Earth's solar system. The council ships in orbit prepared for a final, hopeless defense of their primitive protectorate. "Should we tell them?" Ambassador Gray asked, watching the preparations from Earth. "Not yet," General Stone replied, her eyes on the tactical display showing humanity's hidden fleet. "Let them see for themselves. Sometimes the best lessons come from surprise." As the swarm approached, humanity made its final preparations. The council was about to learn that their primitive protectorate had become something far more dangerous than they could imagine. The time had come for Project Phoenix to show the galaxy what humanity could really do. The storm was coming, but Earth was ready to weather it, and to change the galaxy forever. The swarm entered the solar system like a dark tide, their biomechanical ships blocking out the stars. Council vessels moved to protect Earth, their commanders expecting a quick, hopeless battle before retreating. In orbit, the chief speaker prepared to give evacuation orders. "We can save perhaps 10,000 humans," he told Ambassador Gray through a hologram. "Choose them quickly." Gray checked his watch and smiled. "That won't be necessary," he said. "In fact, I suggest you move your ships back. They might get caught in the crossfire." The chief speaker's metallic face showed confusion. "Crossfire? What are you?" His words cut off as space itself seemed to ripple. From the dark spaces between planets, from the shadow of the moon, and from Earth's deep oceans, humanity's fleet emerged. 300 ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Project Phoenix. Commence Operation Firebreak. General Stone commanded from her underground base. The human ships moved with impossible grace. Unlike the rigid, geometric shapes of council vessels, these ships flowed like liquid metal. Their hulls pulsed with living light, and they moved in patterns that seemed to confuse the swarm's senses. "What are those?" the chief speaker demanded. "Those aren't primitive ships. You deceived us. We learned from the best." Gray replied calmly. "You taught us exactly what you expected to see, so that's all we showed you." The battle began. The swarm, sensing new prey, rushed forward to consume these strange vessels. But for the first time since they appeared, the swarm met something that could match their ability to adapt. Dr. Wells monitored the neural networks from her command station. "The ships are learning," she reported. "Each encounter teaches them more about the swarm's patterns." The Phoenix ships didn't fight like machines. They fought like living things, learning, adapting, evolving. When the swarm changed tactics, the human fleet changed faster. When the swarm developed new weapons, the Phoenix ships developed better defenses. Council observers watched in stunned silence as humanity's primitive fleet tore through the swarm's first wave. Ships that seemed damaged would heal themselves, growing stronger. Weapons that started as simple energy beams evolved into complex arrays that targeted the swarm's weaknesses. "Impossible," one council member whispered. "Your technology. It's alive." "Not just alive," Dr. Wells explained through the comm channel. "It thinks. It learns. It grows. Everything you mocked about our biology, we turned into our greatest weapon." The swarm, facing real resistance for the first time, tried to retreat. But the Phoenix fleet had learned too much about their movement patterns. Human ships cut off their escape routes, herding them into killing zones. "Colonel Reed, execute containment pattern Delta," General Stone ordered. The Phoenix fleet moved as one, forming a massive net of energy and living metal. The swarm found themselves trapped between Mars and Earth's moon, their usual adaptive advantages useless against an enemy that adapted faster. "Your ships," the chief speaker said, watching the battle's end. "They're not using our technology at all, are they?" "No," Gray replied. "We looked at your machines and realized you'd stopped evolving. So we made something better. We took what you thought made us weak, our biology, our adaptability, our drive to survive, and we turned it into something the galaxy has never seen before." The battle ended in 6 hours. The first wave of the swarm, which had destroyed dozens of council worlds, was completely eliminated. Not a single Phoenix ship was lost, though many had changed form dramatically during the fight. As the dust settled, Earth's fleet hung in space like a constellation of living stars. The council ships looked primitive in comparison, their rigid forms a testament to stagnation. "We should talk," Gray told the chief speaker, "about renegotiating Earth's status in the galaxy. But first, we have a swarm to stop. Would you like our help?" The galaxy's balance of power had shifted, and the Council finally understood their mistake. They had mocked humanity's biological nature, never realizing they were mocking the very thing that would save them all. In the great council chamber, once filled with mockery of humanity, a different sound now echoed. The sound of species begging for Earth's help. "Your ships," a reptilian council member pleaded. "They could save our worlds. We offer any price." Ambassador Gray sat in a new seat, one raised to equal height with the highest council members. The power shift wasn't subtle. It was as clear as the hologram displaying the Phoenix fleet's victory over the swarm. 3 days, Dr. Wells explained to the gathered aliens. That's how long it took our ships to not just fight the swarm, but to understand them. She pointed to the analysis screens. The swarm isn't invincible. They're just better at adapting than your rigid machines. The council chambers had changed. Where once floating platforms had kept aliens above humans, now all species sat at the same level. The chief speaker's metallic face showed what humans had learned to recognize as humility. "How did you hide this technology from our scanners?" he asked. General Stone stepped forward. "You saw what you expected to see. Your scanners looked for metal and radiation. Our ships are alive. They can sleep, just like we do. They can hide, just like we learned to hide." In Earth orbit, Colonel Reed commanded the first joint training mission. Council ships flew alongside Phoenix vessels, their crews learning painful but necessary lessons about adaptation and change. "Your ships," a council pilot said, watching a Phoenix vessel heal a battle scar, "they grow stronger after each fight. Just like muscles after exercise," Reed explained. "Everything you thought made us weak, our need to heal, to learn, to adapt, we built into our ships. They're not just machines, they're extensions of what humanity is." Dr. Wells worked with alien scientists, teaching them principles they had forgotten centuries ago. "Life finds a way," she said, quoting an old movie that now seemed prophetic. "By removing all biological elements from your technology, you removed its ability to evolve." In secret bunkers across Earth, more Phoenix ships grew and learned. Each was unique, adapting to different challenges. Some became experts at healing other ships. Others developed new ways to communicate with alien vessels. They evolved, just as humanity had evolved. "We need to evacuate the Thompson colony," a council member announced during an emergency session. "The swarm." "No," Ambassador Gray interrupted. "No more running." He pulled up a tactical display. "The Thompson colony will be the first place we teach the swarm that the galaxy is no longer their feeding ground." The Phoenix fleet moved through space like a school of fish, flowing around obstacles and traps. Council ships learned to follow their lead, to think differently about combat. Old tactics were abandoned. New strategies, based on adaptation and evolution, took their place. "Watch how they move," Colonel Reed instructed the alien crews. "Stop trying to calculate perfect solutions. Learn to feel the flow of battle, to adapt when plans fail." In her lab, Dr. Wells made another breakthrough. "The swarm isn't evil," she explained to the council. "They're scared. They're running from something, consuming worlds to gather strength. We don't just need to fight them, we need to understand them." The chief speaker watched Earth's scientists work with a mixture of shame and hope. "We forgot," he admitted to Gray. "In our rush to become perfect machines, we forgot that imperfection drives growth. That adaptation comes from challenge. That biology isn't a weakness, it's the greatest strength in the universe." As the first month ended, 40 more worlds had requested Phoenix ships to protect them. Earth began teaching other species how to create their own living vessels, sharing the knowledge freely. "Why?" an alien leader asked. "Why help us after we mocked you?" "Because that's what living things do," Gray replied. "They grow, they learn, and they help others grow too. Mockery doesn't matter anymore. Survival does, and we'll survive better together." The galaxy was changing, growing, evolving, just like humanity had taught it to do. 2 months after Earth's first victory, the combined fleet gathered near the edge of Council space. 5,000 ships, 300 Phoenix vessels surrounded by Council ships that had been modified with human biotechnology. Colonel Reed, now Admiral Reed, stood on the bridge of the flagship Horizon Dawn. The ship had grown since its first battle, its living metal now streaked with patterns that looked like neural networks. "All ships report ready," his crew announced. "The Council fleet is in position." For the first time in history, the galaxy species fought together under human command. The Council had unanimously voted to give Earth control of the war effort, a decision that would have seemed impossible just months ago. "The swarm has taken 11 more worlds since our last engagement," General Stone reported during the final briefing. But now we understand their pattern. They're not just destroying, they're searching. Dr. Wells' research had revealed a crucial truth. The swarm was running from something at the galaxy's edge. Their attacks weren't random. They were building up resources for some greater challenge ahead. We don't need to destroy them, Ambassador Gray told the Council. We need to show them a better way to survive. The counterattack began at dawn, Earth time. The Phoenix ships led the charge, their living hulls glowing with new abilities learned from studying the swarm. Behind them, modified Council vessels moved in formations they would have considered impossible months ago. Remember, Admiral Reed broadcast to all ships, adapt and overcome. Don't stick to one strategy. Learn from each encounter. The first battle proved Earth's theories correct. The swarm, faced with ships that could match their adaptation speed, began to show patterns they'd never revealed before. They weren't mindless destroyers. They were frightened, like animals backed into a corner. Look at their movements, Dr. Wells observed from her research station on Earth. They're not just fighting. They're trying to communicate. The Phoenix ships developed new ways to interact with the swarm during each engagement. What started as combat slowly transformed into a complex dance of communication. The living ships learned to send signals that the swarm could understand. They're scared of something called the darkness, Dr. Wells reported after the third battle. It's coming from the galactic core, consuming everything in its path. The swarm has been trying to gather strength to fight it. In the council chamber, Gray presented a bold plan. We don't need to destroy the swarm, he explained. We need to help them. They've been fighting alone, just like they thought they had to consume worlds alone. The council members, who months ago would have dismissed any human suggestion, listened carefully. Their own ships, now partially alive thanks to human technology, had taught them the value of adaptation and cooperation. The swarm thinks survival means consuming everything in their path, General Stone added. We can show them a better way, the human way. Cooperation, adaptation, growth without destruction. Over the next weeks, the combined fleet pushed forward. But instead of destroying swarm vessels, they began to communicate. The Phoenix ships developed new organs specifically for translating swarm signals. Modified council vessels learned to broadcast peace messages in ways the swarm could understand. They're responding. Admiral Reed reported during one engagement. The swarm ships, they're starting to mimic our communication patterns. The tide turned not through destruction, but through understanding. Humanity's greatest victory came not from superior firepower, but from their ability to turn enemies into allies. Perhaps, the chief speaker admitted during a council session, this is why the universe guided us to Earth. Not to teach them, but to learn from them. As the 6th month of the war ended, the first swarm ships voluntarily joined the combined fleet. They brought with them crucial information about the approaching darkness, a threat that would require all species to work together. Humanity had not just saved the galaxy from the swarm. They had shown the galaxy a new way to face its challenges, together, growing stronger through cooperation rather than conquest. The final battle against the darkness was coming, but now the galaxy would face it as one united force. 1 year after the Council first mocked Earth's primitive nature, the combined fleet gathered at the edge of the galactic core. It was a sight never before seen in the history of space. Phoenix ships, modified council vessels, and transformed swarm creatures, all working as one. Admiral Reed stood on the Horizon Dawn's bridge, now twice the size it had been at first launch. The ship had grown and evolved through dozens of battles, its living metal surface showing patterns that told the story of its journey. All ships report ready, his first officer announced. The darkness has been detected at the edge of our sensor range. On Earth, Dr. Wells monitored the fleet's neural networks from her command center. The data flowing in showed something remarkable. The ships weren't just communicating, they were thinking together, forming a vast living network across space. The darkness isn't just a physical threat, she reported to the gathered leaders. It's trying to break down the very bonds between living things. That's why the swarm ran. They could feel it trying to turn them against each other. Ambassador Gray stood in the new council chamber, where representatives of every species, including the reformed swarm, now sat as equals. The chief speaker's metallic face had changed over the months, partially transformed by human biotechnology to show real emotions. Humanity's greatest strength, Gray addressed the chamber, was never in our weapons or our technology. It was in our ability to turn rivals into friends, to learn from our mistakes, and to grow stronger together. The darkness emerged from the galactic core like a storm of pure shadow. It moved with purpose, seeking to break the bonds between species, to turn them against each other as it had done in countless galaxies before. But this galaxy was ready. The Phoenix ships moved first, their living hulls glowing with unified purpose. They had learned from every battle, every encounter, every peaceful interaction. They were no longer just ships. They were the combined wisdom of humanity and all its allies. All ships, commence Operation Unity. Admiral Reed commanded. The fleet moved as one living organism. Council ships, their rigid forms now softened by biological components, flowed between Phoenix vessels like blood cells through veins. Reformed swarm creatures added their unique abilities to the mix, their former hunger for destruction transformed into a hunger to protect. The darkness. It's trying to communicate, Dr. Wells reported suddenly. It's never encountered anything like this, a unified force of multiple species working together. The battle that followed wasn't just fought with weapons. Every ship in the fleet broadcast the same message: unity, cooperation, growth. The very things the darkness sought to destroy became the weapons that pushed it back. Look, the chief speaker pointed at the tactical display. The darkness, it's changing. Where the combined fleet touched the darkness, it began to transform. The shadow-like substance started to take on new forms, responding to the message of unity that humanity had taught the galaxy. It was alone, Dr. Wells realized. Just like the swarm, just like the council, it never learned there was another way. The final push came not from weapons, but from understanding. The Phoenix ships, leading the fleet, reached out to the darkness with the same compassion that had turned the swarm from enemies to allies. We offer you a place among us. Ambassador Gray broadcast on all frequencies, not as a destroyer, but as part of something greater. The darkness, for the first time in its ancient existence, stopped its advance. Like the swarm before it, it began to learn a new way of existing, not through destruction, but through cooperation. 1 month later, the council chamber welcomed its newest member. A being of transformed darkness sat among the other species, its shadowy form now shot through with streaks of living light. The galaxy has changed, the chief speaker announced. Thanks to a species we once mocked as primitive, we have all grown beyond our old limitations. Ambassador Gray smiled as he looked around the chamber. Mechanical council members, biological humans, transformed swarm, and reformed darkness, all working together, all growing stronger through their differences. Perhaps, he said, that's the greatest power any species can have, not the power to stand alone, but the power to help others rise together. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The age of mockery was over. The age of unity had begun.